Hi, I'm Dave Merlino.
I'm Dustin Sweet, and this is the Know Their Story podcast. We talk to veterans about their time in service, returning home from war, and transitioning out of the military. Hopefully along the way we'll inspire you to do the same with a veteran in your life.
Because sometimes all it takes to make the world a better place is sitting down with a friend to know their story. What?
Sounds like lawyers got involved.
Yeah, something bad happened somewhere. Okay, here we are, episode 202 of the Know Their Story podcast, chugging right along as we go. Have a special episode today, as our guest is someone we have talked to before for the movie, and are excited that he has agreed to join us today. He was a gunship pilot in Vietnam, and I'm trying to say had something that you will the audience will definitely know when they hear it. I'm kind of trying to keep it a surprise for later. Because if I say it now, they're gonna zone out and start thinking of it. So we're
had a timely experience.
Yes, timely experience in a certain place at a certain time. But after Vietnam, became a professor at Weatherford College, and more importantly, is the treasurer of the National Vietnam War Museum in Mineral Wells, Texas, someplace we've had the pleasure of visiting. Although I think you guys have grown and expanded a little since we were there in 2016, which is exciting. But please today welcome Jim Messenger. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Jim.
So Dustin always gets the first go at the questions.
Oh man,
our tradition.
I'm gonna start asking weird ones. I gotta tell you, if we're gonna do another season of me asking the first question, I'm gonna start with weird stuff.
Which is funny because I was literally about to say we give him the first question so he doesn't screw it up.
Jim, how are you today?
I'm great.
Did you end up in Vietnam?
How did I end up in Vietnam?
Yeah. Or just in the Army in general?
In the Army in general.
Well, let me tell you the whole story. I volunteered to join the Army. I volunteered to go to helicopter flight training. I volunteered to go to Vietnam. Had so much fun the first year, I volunteered to go back as soon as I could.
Oh, that sounds great.
The media don't want to talk to me.
No, because that reminds me of a line. I know the lines because I just finished editing the movie, so I have tons of lines rattling around in my head. But you told us that you went to Vietnam crazy and you came home crazy, and you can prove it because your first job was flying around in a helicopter letting people shoot at you.
Yep, that's it.
So
did I tell you the second half of that my second job was I got to shoot back.
Oh, cool.
With the gunship. And everybody think that's a much better deal, but we had to make them shoot at us.
So would you just kind of hover in and be like, here I am? Or...
Yep. Whatever we could do. Get down low and slow. And our gunships were marked with shark's teeth that we borrowed from General Chenault. It didn't take long for the local people to say, that's the one with the shark's teeth, don't mess with him.
So would you get a scout helicopter to fly by then and let them be the bait? Or
no, we didn't have any scouts. We just one of the guys in the Huey would fly down low and the other guy'd be high. And we did the same tactic, but we didn't have a scout bird. We just flew around, and we didn't have a lot of spare time to do that, so we didn't do a whole lot of it.
No, flew around and saw what popped up.
What was what did you spend most of your time doing?
Well, I flew slicks my first 9 months of my tour, and then I crashed the general's airplane, and they for some reason decided to invite me over to the gunship platoon. My unit,
that's weird.
Well, my unit, you had to be a slick pilot and a pilot in command before you could be in the gunships, and you had to be invited. You couldn't just say I'm going to be in the blunt. You had to wait, prove yourself, and you got invited. I got a good friend that was invited before me, and he swears that they didn't bring me over just because of the crash, but I know they wanted to get me out of that pilot in command seat because most people get a little bit shook up after a crash.
So
I did something too stupid to even believe, but anyway.
So you crashed and then you got to fly gunships. Is that a case of F up, move up, or?
It was a case, because they were, I was getting short, and because they were concerned that I wasn't as stable as I needed to be anymore, they would, my theory is that they would say, we'll get him over here, we'll keep him as a co-pilot, we'll make sure he gets home safe and don't have to worry about it. So they talked me, when I went over, they told me, say, hey, we're not going to make you a PIC. We don't want to teach you how to shoot rockets, wasted money trying to teach a short timer how to shoot rockets. So, and I said, well, I don't want to shoot rockets anyway. I don't care. You know, everybody gets hung up on titles and positions. I got to tell that story now. We talked about my PhD earlier. When I graduated, got my PhD, all my daughters were there, and wife and sister and I, the whole family. And my oldest daughter says, well, we can't call him Dork anymore. And one of the others says, why not? She says, well, we got to call him Dr. Dork. So that puts you back in your position. You know,
Daughters have a knack for putting you back in your place. Dustin has 2 daughters as well.
True. It's a lifestyle.
So, when you volunteered to join the Army, were you thinking helicopter pilot all the way, or was there some, diversions test, something where the Army told you were going to be a helicopter pilot, or how'd that go?
I was in my 3rd year of college planning to be an Air Force pilot. And if any of you were around, you know that the draft, if you stayed in college with a 2.0 or better, you could keep going. My grade point average, I checked my grade point average every time I got a grade. It was 1.8 halfway through the semester. So I went down to see the recruiters, and the Air Force pilots always had to have college degrees to get in. And I asked the guy, and he said, yep, you still got to have a college degree. Well, I wasn't going to get one anytime soon. So I checked with the Army guy. He said that they had a program that for helicopter pilots, and some of those guys got to fly fixed wing. They picked some out of that group and sent them to fixed wing training. So he said, you'd have a shot, it'd be better than nothing. I said, well, okay. And they take one guy out of 10,000. And it's always a guy that's qualified in fixed wing airplanes and got high time and all that kind of stuff. But once I got checked out, finished my check rides, got trained in a helicopter, I wouldn't be in an airplane now for anything. You can't pay me to get in an airplane.
It's like when I joined customs, they showed you the recruiting video, and it was guys out on horseback and on these speedboats and everything. And you're like, yeah, I like horses. And then you join and they're like, oh, well, that's a specialized program for our Native American trackers. How about SeaTac Airport searching bags? You got me good. So especially since I applied on a canine position on the southern border, and yeah.
But I talk to a lot of vets now with the museum. I used to travel for the museum. I haven't got time to travel now, I'm too busy, but I tell all the vets, I apologize to the infantry guys and the guys that had it kind of tough, but the flying a helicopter is the most fun thing you can do in your life. At least for us helicopter pilots, we don't know of anything else more fun. So I went to Vietnam. I had a good time. Flew every day. Flew 1,000 hours in 12 months.
Wow.
Actually flew 1,000 hours in 9 months, and I went to gunships and didn't fly much. But second tour, I was in Skycranes, and I was a lieutenant and captain at that time for that period, and the warrant officers in the unit wouldn't let the captains fly if they could avoid it. Now you're a lieutenant now, you don't get to fly. So,
well, that's
200 hours. 200
with the
hours that year.
Did you drop a guy from the crane itself to the ground to do all the attachments, or
No.
How did you coordinate that?
Well, the guys that were hooking up things knew how to do that. All 4 of us stayed in a helicopter. We hovered over the top of the guy. He hooked us up and gave us the thumbs up, Neil, and we went on our way.
Were the areas quote unquote cleared when they brought in the Skycrane, or did you have some anxious hovers?
This was 1970 when I got there in late 1970, and General Abrams was in charge of Vietnam. And it's probably not exactly true, but I was told when I got there, Abrams was sent over to get us out of the war, not get anybody hurt, and don't lose any more Skycranes. Oh, so we couldn't, if we could not go into any place that wasn't an airport without a pair of gunships chasing us. If there was shooting, we left. If there was shooting, we didn't go there. But if they started shooting after we got there, we left and we took our gunships with us. We couldn't fly at night. We couldn't fly on Sundays. We were attached to Corps headquarters, and they didn't have a duty officer, so they couldn't pass a mission to us. In camp, in quarters, the company area, we worked 5 days a week from 8 to 5.
Wow.
We couldn't fly at night unless we were going from an airport to an airport. We could fly on Saturdays, but only if it was a tactical emergency. Now, they had a duty officer up at Corps, but so if you've been in the military, this will make perfect sense to you. By the time they find the duty officer, sober him up and get him to headquarters. Did I say it was an emergency?
Nice. Well, if you were halfway hooked up when the shooting started, do you just drop the cable and go, or do they have to unhook really quick, or you just?
Well, it depends. If it's hooked up, we can just go. If it's not hooked up, we could drop it. It takes 2 seconds. I never got shot at in the Skycrane, ever.
Probably had something to do with those gunships around you.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I got involved in Lamson 719, where we could have been shot at. It was kind of surprising they had us out there, but we were part of the prep. We flew up almost to the DMZ and picked up a bulldozer and went west with it. And somebody was along there with us saying, put the bulldozer over on that hill. We dropped off the bulldozer, went cut another one. Did that all day long, came back the next day. All the bulldozers had been moved again. And where we put the bulldozer was an artillery position.
Wow.
Overnight, they had flattened that place out and put some artillery guys up there. They were covering the operation for Lamson 719. I also got to participate in the secret war. I was in Laos when the president told the United States of America there were no American servicemen in Laos. And I mentioned that to a buddy. He said, Jim, you're not keeping track, man. We were not American servicemen. You can be court-martialed for not wearing your dog tags in the Army. We couldn't carry them, let alone wear them. We couldn't take our ID cards with us. We were in plain clothes, so to speak. No patches, no insignia, no nothing. Now, I've added to that story now. There were 30 Skycranes in the world. This is 1971. All of them were owned by the United States Army. Nobody else had any. But we painted over the markings.
Nice.
So,
but no, it's not.
No.
What do you mean? Someone must have stolen it again.
it was a lot of fun.
And I guess I'll get to the part that I alluded to in the opening, and the reason I was doing a soft allude is I don't want to bring this up as a sensational thing, or how it usually gets sensationalized, but also just as an eye into history, because you are an eye into history on what happened there. But you were a witness and to the Piers Commission investigation into, I've heard My Lai, is it My Lai?
My Lai.
The My Lai, as some people say, massacre incident. But I'm sure about 90% of the people listening automatically had some type of reaction to the words My Lai Massacre, and some type of assumption came up from what they've been told in school or media. And so as someone who was I don't want to say witness, you were in the area, which is what got you to be, as you said, interrogated in the bowels of the Pentagon. Are there any impressions or anything that you hear over the years that you just kind of grate on you, or as someone who has been on a side that none of us will ever see or know. What's your impression of what happened, or how it's been portrayed over the years?
On the My Lai thing, I never believed it happened. I knew about things like that, guys out in the bush too long, being shot at constantly, being on the edge constantly, and just going a little crazy. I forget the official term for it. So I knew about things like that, but I just didn't believe they could do that, because they had captured men, women, and children, and then they executed men, women, and children. I kind of can see it if you've got a bunch of the enemy guys and you're all wound up, but the women and children thing, it just didn't make sense to me. And of course, if you could get a hold of one of those guys and talk to him today, he could explain in great detail how it worked out. But after the Pierce Commission, I was in the trial and everything, I was convinced that something happened bad. And I tell people today, Google that. The Wikipedia has a great, absolutely fantastic article on the My Lai, the whole My Lai thing. And you got to understand history. It's a terrible thing, but finding out more details about what was really happening, what's going on is interesting to me. After the Cali was convicted and all that stuff had blown over, several of the guys went in and confessed.
Wow.
And Wikipedia has their names and what they said they did. And when you read that, you kind of got to believe it. Joe came in and he said, yeah, I killed 3 people, and one of them was a woman, and Bill came in and said, I killed this many. And those guys suffered a lot just carrying that around. That's some really heavy baggage, but shooting prisoners is the worst we can think of.
Yeah. And you're saying the term, I mean, I don't know if it's the right term either, but people talk about the fog of war, or mob mentality, and I don't want to say mob, but the idea of mob mentality is a very powerful thing. Once that push, that tip, it's hard to get that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
And like I say, I was aware of those kinds of things, and I'm sure I'd be willing to bet you money, but I don't know how to go prove it. I'll bet that happened in the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, it's probably endemic in every armed conflict through time. We track it more and more the more cameras we have on the ground. That's one thing I've noticed just kind of growing up stateside, is that on one hand, the media wants to report as much as it can, but one of the things that lets those kind of things get reported is how many cameras are actually on the ground.
Yeah. I hope there's not too many veterans that are going to come after me after I say this, but the same kind of thing happened with the Jane Fonda deal. What she really did was bad enough without making up stories, but there were people in the Second World War living in the United States of America funding Hitler.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said anything bad about those people.
Yeah. Doc Del Valle, one of our guys that we've interviewed for the movie, said that they came across a cache of, I think it was bags of rice, but definitely plasma, donated to the people of North Vietnam from the citizens of Berkeley, California. And he said it just, it tore at you. And even on the flip side, we've talked with our veterans about it, how Vietnam seemed to be the first war we tried to win in a humane way to limit casualties, and it's carried over into the modern wars, and war's not humane, but also we seem to forget not only just the bombs that we dropped on Japan, we did a lot of terrible things to win World War II.
Yes.
The fire bombings, it was war. So
yeah, Dresden is a place.
Yeah, people were worried about collateral. I've had people ask me about collateral damage in Vietnam, and I said, Just go back and look at World War II if you want to talk about collateral damage. What's a nuclear bomb on a city do? Those were all soldiers, right? All military people got killed that day.
Yeah, and it's a tough choice. I mean, I believe that it would have been worse to try and invade the Japanese homeland and take it inch by inch. Probably would have resulted in more death, but that doesn't mean it wasn't terrible to drop those bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Like,
and this is for everybody. Real war is that's what real war is. We don't want to fight real wars anymore, and nobody. I think Korea was the first political war. I don't know if how much there was some politics in World War II, by the way. And I'm sure you guys know, I don't know about everybody else, but Patton had his army ready to invade Germany and take over the country in days, and Eisenhower wouldn't let him go because we had promised the Russians they could go first.
Yep.
How many men did we lose because of that plan?
Yeah.
Wars are, if we're gonna fight a war, and I mean a real war, the politicians need to go someplace else and stay asleep until we're finished. We won the Vietnam War militarily, Tet of 68. I was there. I tell people it's just like the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. They threw, and I've got it documented now at the museum. My reference for this, by the way, is the United States Congress records. I'll think of the right term in a minute. The top general in North Vietnam was interviewed by an American magazine, Wall Street Journal, and he said, we were all in and done at the end of Tet. We had nothing left. If you had come across the border, we would have given up within a day or two. There was nothing to fight with. We sacrificed all of those people intentionally, believing that we would win the political war. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, General Diep. It was the definition of a Pyrrhic victory. Like any more victories like that, and we're gonna lose.
That was in the congressional record. The Senate, Congress had voted it into the congressional record. I forget what year, but I've got a copy of the congressional record. And whenever I get time to finish it up, when you come to the museum after our opening of the new facility, you'll get a brochure that says we won the war.
Yeah, and militarily, and over our course of doing this documentary, we've had this conversation with so many different veterans of war is a very terrible thing, and we should do everything we can to avoid it. But once you decide you're going to do it, then you just need to do it. Like, there's no way to make it less terrible. And when you try, a lot of times you make it more terrible.
Yeah. In Korea, we couldn't cross the 38th parallel, but the North Koreans could. So they had a habit of going across the south, killing a bunch of people, and going back across the line where we couldn't touch them. It looked like we would have learned something from that. In Vietnam, think about what Vietnam looks like. There's ocean on half of it. Half of the side is ocean, so there's not a lot of battles going out there. On the other side, there was a line that we couldn't cross. We were surrounded by the enemy, and they could attack from any point at any time and just turn around, run back, and we couldn't touch them. Who fights a war like that?
Yeah,
Americans.
An imaginary line on a piece of paper.
We're super into it too. We're 3 for 3 on those. We're doing great.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I knew exactly what was going to happen in Afghanistan when we pulled out.
Yeah,
everybody did. It was really straightforward. What did you say the other day, Dave? Wasn't it who's shocked that the army, who hasn't been paid in 6 months, didn't just stick around and have a gunfight for free?
Oh, the Afghan army. Yeah, when you pull their air support. Like, I didn't see any politicians volunteering to get shot at for free. Oh, that's right. They hopped on a plane and so, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure my 14-year-old daughters could have come up with a better exit strategy than how we did that. But as as a Vietnam vet, and we've talked to Vietnam vets and also Afghan vets, and it's I've read articles on how to talk to Afghan vets without like really digging up about a lot of emotion that's going on right now. As a Vietnam vet, would you have any advice for them, or after watching what happened in Saigon and those feelings you had?
Yeah, I got lots of advice for everybody. And I like to say I used to travel for the museum and go to big military shindigs and talk to veterans all day and all night. I know I've talked to tens of thousands of veterans over my 20 years with the museum project. And now I can just go sit at the museum and they come to me. I don't have to travel. But I'm not a psychologist. I'm not any kind of medical trained, but with all my experiences, you've got to get them to talk. If they won't talk, they will not get well. Now, they don't like talking to their wives and some other people, but most of them will talk to another vet, especially one that knows exactly who they were, where they were, and what they did. And being a helicopter pilot, I got to go lots of places and see lots of things. And the infantry guys love us because we pulled them out of that hot LZ. And every one of them wants to hug me. And I tell them, did you forget who took you in there?
Yeah, it's kind of,
I mean, come on.
You kind of had an obligation, a responsibility to go back and get them.
Kind of did, yeah. But they all say, yeah. Well, that wasn't a big deal, but you got us out. They were shooting at us and we were losing and you got us out of there. So, but there's that kind of camaraderie that goes into all combat soldiers, all wars, or have the same kind of thing. Certainly the world wars were special at it, but the Civil War and every other war we fought, you build that camaraderie when you're together and you can see over the fence. You don't have to be, the guy was a sergeant and you were a lieutenant. You don't have to be sergeant, lieutenant. You're not just Bill and Joe, and you can talk about this stuff. I got to tell you one story. That the best story I got is we have a volunteer that's volunteering to be our curator right now at the museum. She's been with us several years. Her husband drove an Amtrak in Vietnam. It's a Marine thing, amphibious track vehicle. They've been married over 50 years and he never spoke one word about what happened in Vietnam. Married 50 years, never said a word. He was wounded, was entitled to the Purple Heart. Didn't get one because he didn't want people to know. Didn't ask for one, didn't demand one, just went about his business, went in, got patched up and back to driving his Amtrak. We have an Amtrak at the museum and we got the ramp down finally. And the guy came in one day and he walked over to that Amtrak. He walked halfway up the ramp. He turned around, went back into our visitor center, got his wife, drug her out there, told her the whole story. Just like that.
Wow.
Now you guys have seen it happen at the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real, man.
Yeah,
But
we went.
An Amtrak can do it, a helicopter can do it, a cannon can do it. You don't know what it takes for each guy, probably connected to what he did. But he talked. He'd been talking to me and he just hadn't told his wife anything. He didn't tell me about the Purple Heart, but he did tell me he drove an Amtrak and we talked about where he was. And he was right. He was up on the DMZ and I'd been there too. I knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. And I think he was, if I remember rightly, we overlapped tours a little bit. So we got along pretty well.
Yeah, when we did the project, or not when we did, we're still doing. It's
done. Are we done?
Yeah. I forgot to tell you, Dustin.
Cool.
Slipped my mind. It wasn't that important. No. When we made our first trailer, I'd shown it to some friends and family, and my daughter's godmother. My wife has known them for 30 years, and what she knew about I'm avoiding names. The husband he was in Vietnam and he didn't talk about being in Vietnam, and that was that. So I sent the trailer to their godmother and she watched it, and then he watched it, and I woke up the next morning and I had an email from him, and it was a long email told
Yeah.
me about how he worked on the Chinooks and he was a door gunner and all of this different stuff. And so I showed it to my wife and she's like, I've known him 30 years. He's never said one word to me. And I've always kind of gotten along with him because he's always seemed like a grump and I'm a grump. And so we were grumps together. But suddenly just one day he opened up because of the trailer. And then found out that he watched the trailer almost every day. And then we were over at their house. You know, my girls were Girl Scouts, and being the godmother, bought like
Yeah.
20 boxes of cookies. We're over delivering them, and he's there talking to my daughters about what it was like to be on a Chinook and everything, just totally talking about Vietnam, comfortably too. And it was
Yes.
just one small cattle that I didn't even think was going to be a catalyst when it was sent off. So the smallest gestures can be, you never know. You never know.
Yeah. The guys don't know either. They can't help you. They can't tell you what they need to get loose. But if you can get them talking, you get them talking to you, then someday they talk to somebody else, and it might take years. But if they don't talk, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And what we tell people when they ask about it, and I said, I think, this movie's taught me about being a listener, because as they interview, you have to leave room for the editor. And so, you think they're done talking, you count to 3 in your head, and I'm about to talk, and suddenly they say more. And it made me realize in conversation how quick we are to rush to the next topic. And I think also we have a tendency to want to solve problems and listen and say, oh, have you tried this, have you tried this? Like, you don't have to solve a problem, you just have to listen, and that's it. You don't have to give them some ground shaking advice when they're done with the story. Just be like, hey, thanks for sharing with me, I know that was that's important to you, thank you.
I talked to him now too. We hired a direct mail company to help us raise funds a couple of years ago, and they've been doing a great job. And we get a lot of complaints as a result of people not understanding what the flyer said they could do or were going to do, or had. And if usually the first thing they say, well, I'm a Vietnam veteran. Okay, me too. Well, then that changes their attitude right up front. And if they don't say that, then I say, so you're a Vietnam vet? Yes, I am. What'd you do? When were you there? And next thing you know, we're telling war stories. Half the time, forgot why he called. So,
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it over the phone now.
Yeah. It we like to say saying thank you for your service should be the start of the conversation, not the end of it. Thank you for your service. Oh, what did you do? It seems like such a, I don't even want to, platitude. And it's an automatic thing. Like when you watch Shark Tank, oh, I'm a veteran, immediately, oh, thank you for your service. Now tell me about your product. You didn't really, hey, it's nice that they say it. Like, I'm not degrading it in any way, but it's so automatic. They're on, and it's just interesting to watch.
Well, an automatic response is better than none at all. I have been thanked to death. Sometimes I just tell people, please don't tell me that again. And I lead with I had a good time. I enjoyed myself. I had more fun flying helicopters than there is. And I feel guilty, and I apologize to the infantry guys all the time, because I wanted to do that. I did that. I had such a great time. My motivation, my best friend's dad, I grew up in Illinois, and he was working for the train at the time, and they went on strike every other year. And of course, lost money, but he was sitting around the house drinking beer. I'd go over there, and it didn't matter what time of the day or night it was, what room he was in, he had a beer bottle in his hand. And I didn't stay more than 2 beer bottles, and I was, of course, been going home, but he go, if I had stayed in the Navy, I'd been retired now. He didn't want to hitch the Navy. If I had stayed in the Navy, I'd been retired now. And I said, I get in the military, I'm going to stay for retirement. I'm not going to end up like this guy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get in. Doing a war during the war. I wanted to be Audie Murphy, but I didn't want to get hurt. I wanted to get in during the war because you get promoted twice as fast. And probably shouldn't do it. Maybe nobody cares about it, but I give you my promotions. You make E1 when you go to basic training. If you did a good job, you make E2 when you come out of basic training. That's 8 weeks later, you're promoted. When I signed in for helicopter school, I went to E5. That was 30 days later. I went from E2 to E5. Now I'm an E5. A year later, I'm a W1. A year later, I'm a W2. 2 years later, I'm a first lieutenant. All the people that went back from Fort Walters to Vietnam were offered a first lieutenant's bar. We were really short first lieutenants. And this is a good government story too, because the guy that's looking at the spreadsheet says, oh my gosh, we need 10,000 lieutenants. Holy cow, we got to do something. Well, so they 10,000 aviators become first lieutenants overnight. The guys that are short are infantry lieutenants. It didn't help them at all to make us all pilots, lieutenants. But now the spreadsheet's balanced. We got the right number of lieutenants.
Yeah, that's I almost got written up a couple times in customs because of the spreadsheet jockeys of
Yeah.
oh my God, this number's so big, we need to reduce it. So stop doing this. It's like, yes, but that's going to cost us, X, 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 and X and this, and actually be twice as expensive. No. Yes, opportunity cost, manpower, what you're paying them, everything. No, the parking is too high. All right, I'm out.
Well, I made captain before I came home. It was 1 year to get to captain. So I did all those promotions all the way up. And then the war ended and they threw us all out of the Army. I got riffed as soon as I got back to Fort Sill. There was a letter for me from the Department of the Army saying, thanks for your service. You're not needed anymore. Bye. And they had too many captains. That spreadsheet with all those lieutenants that made captain, they had too many of them. They had to get rid of
about 10,000 too many.
Yeah. And years later, just 5 years ago, I think it was, I was talking to one of my buddies who made general, and we were talking about that business. And he says, there was lots of riffs on it, all kinds of levels. And he said, Jim, when they gave you that lieutenant's bar, they knew they were going to throw you out. That was the plan. Made all of us lieutenants so they could throw us out at the end and they wouldn't have to throw out the good guys. I said, sounds about right. That's my government.
I said, well, I'm a little insulted, but hey, I'm a captain. So
well, four years later, they realized they couldn't live without me. They called me back. And they started me at W1.
Back where you were.
It's all I had put in an application. I stayed current in the reserves, and they called me up at my office in Dallas, and I don't remember giving anybody that phone number, but they tracked me down and told me they want to know if I'd come back in service. I said, well, you're bringing me back in as a captain. Oh, no, we're bringing you back in as a W1 to fly Skycranes. Oh, yeah, screwed that one up good, didn't you? The only guys that could get trained in Skycranes were the top pilots of the time. When they invented that helicopter, they took the cream of the crop, the senior guys got in the Skycranes and Chinooks and flew them. And then as they got running out of pilots, they got into the younger guys, all of us that made first lieutenant, and they threw us all out. Well, the old guys retired as soon as the war was over. They couldn't stand the peacetime Army. They're gone. And there's not a Chinook pilot, and crane pilots were desperately needed. So they were calling everybody they could get their hands on.
Well, going from a gunship to a Skycrane, was that like going from a sports car to a semi truck, or?
Yeah, it's not quite a sports car, but pretty close. But I was instructor pilot at Fort Walters between tours, and I was training students in the smallest helicopter in the military inventory, the TH-55. I went from that to the Skycrane, the largest helicopter in the Army inventory. The cockpit of a Skycrane is bigger than the helicopter I was flying.
Probably not quite as maneuverable.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that, but it could carry a lot of weight.
What was the in-hand difference between the double rotors and the single and the smaller aircraft?
Well, the Skycrane was one rotor, so it was the same thing.
Right.
They're all the same.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if you're flying the biggest one or the smallest one, it's all the same. This hand makes you go places, this hand makes you go up and down. Pedals make you go this way. I got in the Skycrane my first day. Instructor put me up front. He said, okay, let's go. I said, what do you mean? You're going to talk me through it. Tell me how to, it's a single rotor helicopter, Messenger. Let's go. Push the stick forward. It had wheels. You had to get used to the idea that you had wheels, but
did it take a little extra time to get off the ground to get that weight, or did it pretty much once you started, it was kind
well,
of like...
you're at the heliport. You got to taxi out to a place and then take off from there. We did that with all the helicopters. We had to go out to the takeoff point. But once you're in the field, in the environment working, you just go. Pick up and go. In Vietnam, our little place we were living was so small, our maintenance people weren't there. They were up in a whole different place in Da Nang than the pilots were. And the maintenance guys would fly a Skycrane down to our area, and they'd get out and we could get in and take it on the mission.
Just gonna borrow this.
And then they had to drive back, or like what? Did they get a ride later? What?
Yeah, they'd get in the truck and go and get a ride back.
Down in the helicopter, back in the truck.
Oh man.
The maintenance guys, they don't fly.
They're
not mission pilots.
One of our very first pitches we ever did was at a video game studio in San Francisco, and it just happened to work out this way. But we joke because at the time of day, the best way to get there is we had to get a town car. So we got a town car to go down to the pitch, and then we left the pitch on the BART. We're like, well, we're doing this in the town car out on public transit. The pitch went better than the transportation made it seem, but it was just, we're riding back on the BART thinking we did this wrong. So
well, that was all fun time. Like I said, I flew 200 hours in a year in the Skycranes. And I ran the motor pool in my spare time. I was when they gave me my lieutenant's bar, I was a transportation corps officer. So when they fired they currently had a warrant officer running the motor pool who was a pilot, and he wasn't really happy and he didn't know anything about running a motor pool. We were attached, technically our headquarters was the 101st Airborne, and in the 101st Airborne, officers aren't allowed to drive. I skipped into a news story here. I'll go back to the young warrant officer. They fired him, put me in charge. He had just gotten his CMMI inspection from division, command maintenance something inspection, big deal. He was the worst motor pool in the whole division.
If you're gonna do something, do it right.
I didn't know the first thing about running a motor pool, but I knew a little bit about logistics, and I had the right insignia on my collar, so they put me in there to take care. Something like 8 months later, I left country. I got the same inspection. I was the best in the division. There's a lot of good stories involved in that one. But because I was a motor officer, I could drive a truck. In the 101st, you couldn't drive trucks if you're an officer. But I was the motor officer. I had my own Jeep, so I could drive. And unfortunately, that required me to do a lot of extra stuff. On Fridays, I had to leave early in the day and drive across Da Nang and pick up a load of nurses in my 3/4 ton truck. I lost my Jeep. The commander's Jeep got broken, and he took my Jeep. So that's the way it worked there. The commander's Jeep. Okay, captain or lieutenant, either one. Yeah, I'm taking your Jeep. Okay. So I had a 3/4 ton truck most of the time. Picked up a load of nurses Friday night, brought them back for the steak fry. We had a big steak cookout. We had a barbecue thing was big as a house, and it was a 2-story deal. We had a sunbathing place on top, and we brought the nurses over on Friday afternoon, fed them steaks and alcohol. And the worst part of it was I had to get up early Sunday morning and take them back.
Well, I'm going to go back to what we were talking about before and say thank you for your service, Jim. Why don't you tell me more about it? The things you do for your country.
Yeah. Well, I was the only one that could do that, so I got stuck with it every week.
Yeah.
Shucks.
You forgot to do the air quotes around stuck.
Well, And the thing is, when I got time to tell stories, my first tour, I'm in a aviation company. It's got 3 platoons, 2 platoons are slick ships, and they've got 8 helicopters each. And the 3rd platoon is a gunship, and they've got, I think they had eight helicopters too. I lived in a tent with 19 other pilots. It was a big tent, but if you know what an Army cot is, that's how much room I had in my space, was an Army cot and enough room to walk in and get into the cot. 20 pilots in a tent. Second tour, I had my own room. We had our own officers club. We worked 8 to 5, 5 days a week.
It's a whole different tour. That's a whole different life.
It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's, kind of hang out. Did you volunteer for another tour if that's what it's going to be like?
If they hadn't ended the war, I'd have been over there the 3rd tour. I won't go back really bad because I had so much fun.
How did you end up getting out once the Skycranes were over?
Well, they riffed me when I got back to Fort Sill. They threw me out of the Army.
But then, so when they called you back, I mean, you said you retired as a captain. Did you go back in and serve more time, or?
Oh yeah. That's one of those complicated puzzles. So let me go from the beginning though. So they call me back and they call me on the phone and said, we're going to bring you back in. And I said, so you bring me back as captain? Oh, no. We'll bring back you as a W1. W1? I was a W2 at least. I mean, guy says, hold on. Let me tell you the story here. We can bring you back as W2. If you want us to, we'll do it. But here's the way it's going to go. You're going to be up for promotion of W3 in 6 months to a year. You're not going to get promoted. You're going to get thrown back out. And this time there's no recall. You're done. Okay. And he says, if you let us bring you in as a W1, within 90 days, we will do a grade determination and discover that you used to be a W2. It's hard to tell these stories. We'll backdate the data rank to 1 January when you came in. We'll give you all your back pay from W1 to W2. You got 5 years to make W3, and you'll almost guaranteed you make it. You get in here and clean up your record, you should get promoted without any difficulty. We'll clean up my record. Yeah, when you get in, be sure to get the hold of your records and get them cleaned up. 2 years in Vietnam, thousands of hours combat flying. My official record kept by the Department of the Army, I had 1 Air Medal and 1 Article 15 on my record. That was my entire career.
Wow.
Yeah, so clean that up a little.
I got a speeding ticket in flight school going out the gate. That was my Article 15. I had people from general officers on down tell me that would not ever reflect on your career. That would not be in your permanent record. That was during flight school. It all goes away. It didn't go away for me. And I never checked my record. I was too busy partying. So but yeah, the first time somebody in the Army did me a favor and actually did it, told me the truth and told me how they were going to fix it and turned me loose. And yeah, just like the guy said, I came in W1. 60 days later, I was a W2, got my back pay, put on my new rank. Tried to get my captain thing back and never was able to. Well, initially I wasn't able to do that. Later on, I got my hip pocket commission. I was a captain in the reserves and a W4 on active duty. I actually got promoted to major in the reserves. That's another good story. But anyway, I stayed in until Desert Storm started. I was the last officer to leave Fort Hood, Texas. The rest of them got locked in and went to Desert Storm. But the technicality, when you retire at the highest grade held. And after 20 years of service, you get the highest grade held on, and that was W4. after 30 years, you get the highest grade ever held. How do they say that? After 30 years, I can't remember how they said it. Anyway, after 30 years, they give you the highest grade you ever held. And I had been a captain, so after 10 years of retirement, I got promoted to captain. So officially,
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Within a year, 1 year in Vietnam, and then 10 years in retirement.
Yeah.
So,
And it was a couple $100 a month retirement pay, so worth getting it done.
yeah. You said you got riffed and you had a little time, and then they called you back. Did having that time kind of out of the Army after the rift before you went back kind of prepare you for actual retirement, separating from the military? Like, had you lined things up, or how did that final, like, I'm separated, I'm done, I am now forever civilian, how was that for you?
It was crushing for me because I always wanted to be in the military until 20 years I could retire. That was my life goal. And I came home with that letter from the Department of the Army that said goodbye, and told my wife, and I was in tears. I was just crushed. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I got a wife, 2 kids, no job. I was one of those pitiful people that we see all the time on the street that don't know what to do. She says, get over it. Go back to college, finish your degrees, and get a good job, and it'll all be fine. They gave us $15,000 readjustment pay when they threw us out. We conned a real estate guy into selling us a house without making any payments, or without any down payment. We had that 15 grand in the bank. We bought a house for $10,000, a small house. We had 2 kids, but the real estate guy felt sorry for me, and on paper gave me a job working for him. So, because he said, if you tell me you're not going to be in the Army, I can't loan you them. I can't make the deal go through. If you stay in the Army, it's good. I said, well, I got the money in the bank. I can give it to you, but then I can't eat. I said, if you ever want, I paid monthly payments. I said, if you want me to pay it off, the money's in the bank, I can do that. And that's when he gave me the job unofficially, so that I could do that. But it worked just like the wife planned. I went back to college just now. I'm 28 years old, and I've got parties to do at home. I don't have to go out and find women to chase down. I told her, I said, I'll work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week at college. I'll do all my stuff. I'll come home. It'll just be family. And that's the way we did it for 2 or 3 years. I graduated with 2 bachelor's degrees simultaneously, not a double major, 2 full bachelor degrees, 2 majors and minors to go along with each of those. I was the first person to do that at Midwestern University in Wichita Falls, Texas, ever, at that school, first one. Had to go see the president to get permission to do that. Why?
You show him up. That's why.
I got 2 degrees. Here's this one, and here's this one.
He just wanted to meet you.
Yeah, he says, why do you want to do this so bad? I said, well, look, one of my degrees is teaching. I know I can get a job. Matter of fact, I'm a math teacher. I can get a job. I can walk into any school district in the country. I'm a math teacher. They'll hire me on the spot. They won't even interview me. He said, okay. And I said, but if I go out and try to get a job in industry, and I present them with an EDD, actually a bachelor's degree in education, they're going to laugh me off the street. They're not even going to talk to me. Get out here, teacher. So he said, oh, good point. Okay, done.
There you go.
I love these stories, and I get to tell them all the time when I get interviewed. So.
How much did your experience flying for the Army, how much did that experience translate over into civilian life?
Oh, absolutely nothing. I became a computer programmer in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
And I was the best computer programmer in Dallas, Texas at the time. And I'm humble.
but not a lot of flying involved there.
No flying, no flying.
Did your Army experience kind of reflect on how you approached as a teacher, in terms of how you ran your class and what you expected from your students?
Probably not. I taught high school in Texas for 6 weeks. That's all I could stand. I bailed out. They assumed because I was in the military that I would be one of these authoritarian leaders and crack the whip and everybody would sit up straight, put their hats on right and all that kind of stuff. I am Mr. Nice Guy. I've always been Mr. Nice Guy. You want to be on my team? We're going to have a good time. I'm a team leader and I work with a team. If you don't want to play, if you don't want to work, get out of here. Go someplace else. I'm all about doing it. And high school kids at that time, when trying to think what year that was, 1990, I retired and went to work at the local high school. I had kids in my classroom that were, one kid wanted to go to the bathroom and he was acting like he really needed to go. It was right next to my classroom. I said, okay, go to the bathroom. He tore the bathroom apart. I got called out on the carpet the next day because somebody tore the bathroom apart.
Wow.
Well, were you just supposed to say, no, don't go to the bathroom?
Absolutely were. The superintendent got a hold of me. The principal got a hold of me and said, you do not give them permission to leave that room. They stay in that room no matter what. I got to get out of here. I'm not staying.
Time to go.
What
Well, it hasn't changed, Jim. I got to tell you, I just had that conversation.
Because you're the one who tore up the bathroom?
Yeah, it was 1990, Dave. That was me. The only reason I actually am involved in this podcast is to apologize to Jim. I'm so sorry that I walked out of your class and trashed the place. That's
Thanks, Dustin. I'll have to keep track of that.
life goal achieved, man. Whew. Well, those things can really weigh on you.
Yeah.
When I ended up teaching college, it was completely different.
Yeah.
At least initially, but well, I'm in small town Texas, so you can't expect a whole lot, but the change in cultures between I graduated from high school in '63. These kids are graduated from high school in 2020. I mean, there's nothing to compare to it. And, I've taught a lot of business classes for 15 years, and I would ask them, so how many of you have a job? Nobody raised their hands. You don't have a job? Have you had a job? How many of you have never had a job? They don't raise their hand, never had a job. Freshman in college, never had a job. How do you get a date? How do you buy your beer? Goodness.
Yeah, I'm covered in questions, and they're all like how they're all how questions. Like, I feel like they figured something out that I didn't.
Yeah, it's like in Parks and Recs, Winkler, Henry Winkler plays the local dentist, and his kids are totally spoiled, and they've got the line, "Money, please." Money, please.
But now the Army helped me a lot because I learned the team thing in the Army. I never did teams in school because I was 5 feet tall, weighed 90 pounds. There was no sports, there were no athletics that wanted me, any part of me or anything. But flying a helicopter, you got a team of 4, everybody does their job or you get in big trouble. That's who I am. And warrant officer, expert in my field, and I get things done. I do it. That's why they like me at the museum. I don't have time to talk about it. I'm doing it. This needs to be done. Good, I'll do it. We almost lost the museum in the beginning because we didn't do anything. Quick story, we bought a piece of land, 12 acres, $40,000. We didn't have any money, so went out and raised the money. I started a landowners club. You donate $1,000, you're in the landowners club. Took me about 6 months or a year to get the money to pay off the loan. That's doing it.
Yeah.
The guy that sold us the land put a caveat in there and said, if you don't do something in 10 years, I'm taking it back. 9 years later, I stand in front of the board of directors saying, what's the deal? Are you guys quitting? Did we give up and nobody told me? And they said, what are you talking about, Jim? I said, we got to give the property back next year. We haven't done anything. And they go, Really?
He was serious?
So, hell, I didn't know what to do either. I mean, I was part of the board and I was sitting there waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. I was asking them to tell me what to do, as a matter of fact. So somebody said, build a garden. I don't know how to build a garden. I said, well, your wife's a master gardener, ask her. I got my wife sucked into it. She's the master gardener in charge of the 7 gardens that we have up there.
Nice. Well, you've definitely done a lot since then. I mean, you've got the wall, the replica of the wall. You have the Huey up. I mean, you're right down from Fort Walters. You had the leftover, was it the media trailer from the Bush's Crawford Ranch?
Yep.
But
Yep.
you have expanded since we've been there. This is a good segue. I was going to ask you, tell us about the museum, how it's going, goals, how people, let people know about it. The floor is yours.
Well, we did our opening of that garden and just under the 10-year wire so we could keep the property. While we were working on our garden, a bunch of guys from the 52nd Aviation Battalion that were in Vietnam with it came by and told me the story of the Camp Holloway wall. Anybody in Pleiku in Vietnam? This memorial wall was built by the 52nd Aviation Battalion at Camp Holloway in Pleiku, and it's named Holloway because the first guy killed was named Holloway. And then after that, they decided that they would build this nice wall to honor all the guys that died over there. When the North Vietnamese invaded the country, they went right by there and bulldozed that memorial because they don't allow other people's memorials in their country. So these guys came to us and said, hey, we want to rebuild our wall. Is there any chance we could talk you out of a piece of land? I said, take that piece right over there. And they raised the money, they built it. We helped them have a grand opening ceremony, and that was our 2nd year in business, and we've already got another thing. And the master gardeners moved in right behind them, planted a garden around it. Now I don't need any guidance, I just say yes, put it there. One of our volunteers was hot on, Jim, I want to put a Huey on a 20-foot pole. I said, okay, Jerry, I don't know how to do that. He said, you don't have to do anything. Just how much is it going to cost? Nothing. Okay.
Like the sound of that. Go.
So we
go
put a
for
Huey
it.
on a 20-foot pole, and the master gardeners built a little garden around it. The hardest time I had was a guy that was nagging me to build a replica of the Vietnam Memorial Wall. I finally told him one day, I did sick and tired of him hammering on that. I said, look, I don't know how to build that wall. They've had millions of dollars in Washington, D.C. figuring out how to build that wall. I don't even know where to start. And he says, it's a sign. Go down to the sign company and tell them you got to do this, and he'll tell you how. And that's how it happened.
Yeah, that's nice.
Like
That's great.
I mean, I know Craig Jorgensen went out and he walked that whole wall. Just I could see it on his face, just as powerful as being in DC.
Yeah, it's not as powerful, and its half size has a lot to do with that. But there are some people that don't go to Washington get as much out of it as I did going. I will not go back I've been to the wall in Washington one time. I'm not going back. It's just too strong. And I don't have a real connection to it like some guys do.
No, it's amazing. It's an amazing piece.
Yeah, platoon leader who lost half his platoon, he has real problems going to the wall. But, the only people, there's 2 guys on the wall that I was close to, basic training together, went through flight school together. And I can't even remember this other guy's name, but one of the guys ended up being best man at my wedding. And they were in Fort Worth. They lived in Fort Worth, and I flew down from Illinois to get with them. We partied before we went to flight school together. On the drive from Fort Worth to Mineral Wells, I looked out the window of the car and said, I belong right here. I had this sensation, this feeling that I was home, that this is where I belong. Just outside of Mineral Wells, someplace, and met my wife at the Dairy Queen in Mineral Wells, and still got her. It's where I belong. If I get too far away from here, I get homesick or something. But the guy, Joel Kohler, And Sam Hunt was the other guy. I said, you guys remember this, because when I tell the story 50 years from now, I'm going to be calling your names and you're going to back me up. Neither one of them made it back from Vietnam alive. Sam was in a helicopter crash and Joel was killed. Now you'll love this one. He was killed in a quick draw contest in the officers club.
What?
Seems the other guy didn't unload his weapon.
Yeah, you got to do your do your breach check before you, well, don't do a quick draw contest outside the range or a breech barrel, but
Rumor has it they were drunk.
Don't say.
Get right out of town. What?
Yeah.
So
But yeah, we've got, I've said 7 gardens. We've got all sorts of vehicles now. We've got 4 boats. You guys know anything about the Navy?
A little bit.
They have boats and they go on blue water and brown water.
Striped shirts, right?
Yeah. We have a captain's gig. And a captain's gig is a boat that he can use when they're out to sea. They can't drive, so they have to get in a boat. That's their ocean-going car. They got a driver that takes them out in the boat when they need to go someplace. We got an admiral's barge that's bigger than a captain's gig. Captain's gig's a little bitty boat. This is a great big giant boat. Same thing. He rides around in that when he needs to go someplace in the water. We got 2 minesweepers. All 4 of those need to be completely restored. They're ugly, but people look at them and hey, this is kind of ugly looking. Yeah, do you want to help us restore it? You want to make a donation so we can get money to see, those are the new stuff. We got the Amtrak, of course. We got Gamma Goat. Anybody know what a Gamma Goat is? That's pretty famous equipment. They invented them for Vietnam War and they threw them away. They never used them again after the war. It's it pulls a little trailer and it's they call it, I can't remember if it's a 6-wheel drive or 8-wheel drive they call it, but the trailer wheels are driven. They're under power.
Cool.
Trailer has its own gear train.
Is it geared to the car?
Yeah.
Wow.
They say it'll climb a 10-foot fence straight up, concrete wall straight up and over the top now. The bad news is they're made out of aluminum. So if you drive them rough, they go to the motor pool and get fixed the rest of the week.
As I say, if you not tried, you got one. Let's go find a 10-foot concrete wall.
But we have 2 of them. One of them we actually had running. Guy took it under his wing and got it running and drove it around the place a bunch of times. And every time he drives it, it's broken. He has to go.
It's because it's made of aluminum.
Yeah. But what else we got? So then we had a plan from early on, the big plan that never got executed. And we realized that we weren't good at big things. We did this little thing and this little thing and this little thing, and everybody was enjoying it. Well, I was doing it also. Of course they weren't enjoying it. What are you doing next, Jim?
Yeah. When do we come to the opening?
So we knew that we needed a phased plan to make any progress at all. We could have the big plan that we started with, but we had to break it down into pieces, and it didn't break into pieces easily. A guy showed up one day and told us he could give us a plan for something like that, and he did. He gave us a 4-phase plan. You build this piece, you build that piece, you build that piece, and you don't have to build the other 3 if you don't want to. And that's when I really got energized. And the guy told us that he could build it for us for about $500,000. Man, I can raise $500,000. That's not a problem. And I just bumped it up to $1 million because I knew he was lying.
That's how the motor pool really worked out.
Yeah. Well, we got the $1 million in. We got him started. A year later, he'd spent all the money and anything else we had managed to collect, and we've had to fire him because we didn't have the building dried in. So,
that's too bad.
That was when we started the 2 steps, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back instead.
Yeah. Well, let's get another couple steps forward. How can people support the museum? Where can they go? What can they do? What can they see? if they're not in Mineral Wells, Texas. If you're in Mineral Wells, like go to the museum.
Yeah, well, and we're really not in Mineral Wells. We're outside of town a little ways. Our mailing address is Weatherford, and officially we're in Parker County. So I like to sort that out a little bit in the beginning. I could give you our post office box number and you can mail us money. We have a direct mail campaign company now raising funds for us. And I'll tell you a little story. I've had some callers that were unhappy that I was hired somebody to raise money for us. You know, everybody knows about the people that call you on the phone and ask for $100 and they don't give any of it to charity, or they give
Keep
them
99 of it.
So they all figured that we're sucked into that thing. We got one of the top 2 or 3 companies in the country that raise funds. Anybody know about the Army Museum that just opened?
No.
No,
Really? Whoa.
I got a 2-year-old, man. I haven't left the house except to talk to this guy.
Anyway, the National Army Museum was built using one of these companies.
Cool.
They made every government contractor donate $1 million. They had generals raising money for them. We had 10 helicopter pilots with no names and no money trying to raise $20 million. We were unsuccessful. They got everything going they could possibly going, and they're hiring one of these companies to raise money for them.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing now. Here's the deal. I got to tell you the story. So I do engraved bricks. If you want to donate $150 to the museum, you send me the $150. I'll make a brick with 15 characters on each of 3 lines, whatever you want to put on there. It will go in our meditation garden and be there forever. In 12 years of doing that, I got 700 bricks. It's better than it sounds.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
The company that we hired said, ask if they could borrow my brick campaign. And I said, well, sure, why not? In 12 months, they had 6,000 bricks.
Wow.
They're over 10,000 now, and I don't have room for them all.
Nice. Well,
That's
maybe
beautiful.
I'll tell people if they donate to our movie, I'll put a brick with their name on it in my backyard. No, that's good. Dang.
Our website has a donate now button. You can donate through a variety of places. The website's a good place to start if you're into webs. If you're not into webs, I don't know what you do today. I'm not sure how you do that. You got to
you have to be into webs if you're listening to us right now. So you got that going for you.
Those people, okay. But you have to get our mailing address somehow or other, and then you can start mailing. And you'd be, well, you guys probably wouldn't be amazed, but the number of Vietnam veterans that don't have a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your website address there, Jim?
National Vietnam War Museum.org. I think I haven't used it in so long. Let me get my business card out.
You want me to double check it for you?
That's it. www.nationalvn, not the whole word Vietnam. National VN War Museum, all one word, .org.
Perfect.
We'll put a link to that too.
Yeah, we'll put that in the description. Or do you want to do the NPR thing, Dustin? That's www.
No, I'm not going to do that.
nationalvnmuseum.com or .org. Yeah, we're not exactly
A host of bad directions.
We've got faces made for radio and voices made for TV.
Yeah. I've been interviewed a lot over the years. I've been interviewed with radio a lot, and the radio guys in the area say, I got the radio. I think I've lost it, but I had the radio voice when I was younger. And I attribute that to, I always have to thank somebody for everything I got. I mean, yeah, I got a job. My first job my dad got for me. I came home from school and he says, go down to the gas station. Bill's got a job for you. Okay.
Sounds good.
I attribute that to most of my military stuff to, if I think of it, it wasn't Boy Scouts. Civil Air Patrol. I spent my teenage years with the Civil Air Patrol. I knew everything there was to know about Air Force. And that's why I wanted to be an Air Force pilot, because I knew what those guys did. They sat around doing nothing most of the time. And when they did have to do something, they went out and flew some screaming airplane. Talk about fun. But Civil Air Patrol taught me all about the military, learned about organization, probably my organization skills. I had those when I was in high school because I was a member of this club and that club and that club, and I was in school and then clubs and then things on the Wednesday night I had to be at Civil Air Patrol, Thursday night I had to be at D Malay. So I've always had that kind of background. But what was the question?
I think it's just more of a roundabout. Let's just talk. I think we're talking. I mean, when you brought up Civil Air Patrol, it made me think my friend actually lives in Dallas, and he came out to see us. We went to the barbecue joint down the road when we were at the museum the night before, but his sons are in the Civil Air Patrol now, and quite enjoying it. Although one does have a fear of flying, which, but he's in maintenance. I guess more so, and we've talked about getting veterans out and getting them talking, being a really important thing. Just get them talking. On the flip side of that, to kind of nudge veterans, any that may be listening, towards wanting to talk, as someone who's come home from Vietnam and had all this experience, and especially for today's veterans and what's going on and the experience you have, what advice do you have for either veterans who have just come home from war, or not just come home, but come home, or are getting ready to separate, or just separated? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Well, the coming home thing is just like the Vietnam vets. It's not different. You got to get them talking, make sure they're out, come out of the closet, talk to us. After this last week of the news media and the comparison between Saigon and
Kabul.
It's just the exact same photograph. I don't.
You go back and study all the wars, and it's a pattern. There's good and bad and ugly, but especially the last two wars we were in. I mean, we were over there for 20 years. What did we do? What were we? We were trying to train somebody, but surely we're better trainers than that. I got through basic training in 8 weeks and knew how to shoot everything. I learned what the bayonet does when I was in basic training. What's the bayonet for? Anybody know?
I'm pretty sure you put the pointy end in the other person.
The purpose of the bayonet is to kill.
Yep. Well, and like when people say we need less lethal guns, like, what? They're either lethal or they're not. Like,
I'm always confused. Like, for what? Like,
yeah.
We need to copy our actions from the soccer people. Instead of shooting people, we need to give them a yellow card.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, that's gonna solve 2 yellow cards and you're out of here, guy. You got to go somewhere else.
But then you have to like roll around on the ground, like, oh, my knee. So
but yeah, they and I never had any troubles coming home either. And I always apologize for that. Nobody spit on me, nobody yelled at me, nobody saw me when I came home from Vietnam. Both tours, we landed up in Seattle and went to SeaTac Airport at 3:00 in the morning. I was the only person there. I got on the first flight to Dallas. My wife was in Dallas picking me up, and I was home. I didn't see anybody but her the whole time. I'm sure there were other people on the plane, but I didn't really see them. Got on the plane.
Yeah.
Long ride back.
Having worked at SeaTac at 3:00 in the morning, I can tell you there's still no one there at that time.
But
it's a good time to sneak through.
We don't get a chance to talk to the new vets, but I need to put a plug in for the Vietnam Veterans of America. They put it in one of their, I don't remember what they called it, as one of their rules that they said no future veterans will ever be ignored again. And they tried. You know who was the first people at the airport welcoming those guys home? Vietnam veterans and their family were the first ones in the airport doing that.
Yeah.
passing it down the line, trying to keep it going. I think I love it. The welcome home thing works for me. I welcome home everybody I talk to, and it's usually welcome home brother. And now I'm brothers with infantry guys and armor guys and privates and generals and all kinds of people, because we all lived through the same crazy couple of years. Afghanistan's the same way. Those guys ought to have a nice bond, and they need to get together. Maybe I'm sure the VFW won't let them in, but
yeah. Well, it's, when you're talking about the bond with the infantry, I just want to say, you said you would apologize to infantry because you got to fly away. All of the blues that we've talked to, the infantry felt sorry for you guys because you couldn't hide behind a tree like they could. The clouds didn't stop the bullet. So it's always interesting, you kind of think about it, you're landing and you get to see the helicopter fly away and you're like, God, I wish I was maybe that guy. But it's every pilot we've talked to and every infantry we've talked to both thought that they had the better end of the deal.
Yep. Yeah, if I liked to shoot, sit behind a tree trying to shoot at people, I would have volunteered for the infantry. I never did like that.
Well, that's the beauty of America, right? One guy wants to fly a helicopter, one guy wants to stand behind trees. It's perfect.
There you go. Life works. You just got to find out what you're good, or either what you're good at or what you really love. I told all of my college students, I said, find out what you like. And if you find what you like, you're probably going to be good at it. So now you're good at it and you like it, find out how to make money at it. Because that's what you need to be doing with your life. And the young people around here just don't have a clue. I feel so sorry for the young people that don't have a clue where they want to be, what they want to be, how to be what they want to be. They don't have a job. They never had a job. They don't even know how things work. You gotta get a job so you have money.
Well, it's I will say that's not just relegated to Texas. So with two 14-year-old daughters, they're having the crisis of what they want to be. They call it a crisis. I call it you're 14. But going through these conversations with them, it seems like they feel, and I don't mean just my daughters, but that whole age, they feel that society expects them to be something and they have to have the answers. And part of that's probably social media and everyone pretending like their life is great, which I try and tell them it's not. But yeah, it's an interesting just peak. And I as a Gen, Dustin and I are both Gen X, the generation that supposedly doesn't really care and leave us alone and we'll figure it out. It's very hard to raise this generation of, people. My daughters will be like, oh my God. And I'm like, who cares? Like, whatever. And it turns out they do. Like,
Hey, I want to backtrack just a minute because you asked me a question that I never got around to the best answer to about what to do for the museum. What you need to do is come see us if you can. I mean, I understand people in California, it's a long drive, and East Coast is quite a ways off and everything, but right now there's no cost to get in. We don't have the new building finished, but I can give guided tours. It's a construction zone, so I can't let you in there by yourself. But I've been taking guided tours through. Most of the volunteers have learned how to do that, and everybody that goes through it loves it. It's not finished. I keep telling them, well, it's not finished. Well, yeah, but what you got is a good start. I mean, it's okay. Come see it. We can't, for whatever reason, we just can't seem to put the one and one together to get two. But we're getting closer every day. My general contractor and I both agreed a month or so ago that the construction will be done by the end of this year. Now that's the construction. The exhibits right now were, our last crisis was our exhibit builder person, designer and builder, walked off the job last October. Blackmailed us to come back for $100,000, so I'm not paying it. So I had to learn how to build exhibits, and that's not a talent that I have. It's doing the best we can with what we got.
You said we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Oh, I was just thinking, there's a lot of out of work artists who would love to build exhibits. I think if you reach out a little bit, you'll find some you'll find some sculptors and some set designers who would really like to have a shot at that.
Yeah, I actually picked up a young man from Weatherford College that's been doing the sets designs and building for the drama club, or actually for the drama department. So I got him on board now.
Nice. Drive down to Austin and talk to anyone on a street corner is probably an out-of-work artist.
Okay. I try that out.
But you guys are on Facebook as well, correct?
Yes, there's a Facebook page. My name's on there. I'm not on there. I don't have time for Facebook, unfortunately. But we have.
It's
the other thing I want to introduce that's really important that I'm not sure you guys know about. A few years ago, I decided that we should start a group called the Sons and Daughters of the Vietnam War. And I put a note on our website that said, if you're interested, send me an email. And I picked up 20 or 30 people. And then I got a hold of a young woman in Connecticut who really wanted to do that. Cool. They've got a dues structure set up. They haven't incorporated yet, but the Sons and Daughters of the Vietnam War are going to take over when all of the Vietnam War vets die. Oh,
that's fantastic.
Our organization right now is made up of Vietnam veterans and their wives. So, and we figured this out, by the way, when we started 25-30 years ago. When we started this project, we figured out that we weren't going to live forever. I hope everybody's on board with that.
I've heard that. I got that nagging feeling I won't either. To be determined. No.
But the Sons and Daughters are, like I say, 200 members, paid dues. They're in the process of incorporating, and it's nationwide. Katie, the gal that started it, sent out a map of their membership, and it starts on the East Coast and makes a circle around the continent.
That's a lot of grassroots and word of mouth.
The dead center of where we expected to get the most help, the dead center of the country, there's very few people, but the perimeter, we got them loaded up.
Having driven through the dead center of the country, though, there really aren't a lot of people.
Just corn, Jim.
Corn.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm gonna have to go get my daughters from their very first day. They had soccer afterwards. But time to see how their first day of high school was.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to have some more learned it the hard way type lessons today. They're in AP history, which I was super excited about. But yeah, they've got they're in a college prep private school, and then there's expectations, and I'm gonna love hearing about them.
I want to warn you about something I do for all the young dads with daughters. This is the worst 4 years of your life, high school with girls. You know what's going to happen, right?
Oh, I was a high school boy.
Okay.
I am lamenting the move across the state for any of the YouTube viewers wondering why it looks so different. Welcome to the new offices of Rainbows and Unicorns Entertainment in Spokane, Washington. But I spent many years cultivating up through grade school and middle school when they had to come in and tell us what you did. Parents come in. I was right there talking about how I used to be a federal law enforcement officer, and I had those guys terrified of me. But all that work went out the just down the drain when we moved. Got to start over. So, but I did used to work at the gun range here when we lived here, so I'll try and work that into conversations. So, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Jim. It was a pleasure to talk to you down in Texas. Looks great in the movie. Good things to say, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime.
And Dustin, anything to add?
Oh, nothing that won't drag us on for another 10 hours. I like talking to you. I like talking to Ed. All right.
Yep. All right. Stay with us for a second, though.
You've been listening to the Know Their Story podcast. If you made it this far, we must be doing something right. Let us know by subscribing to our channel.
And think about sitting down with the veterans in your life, because saying thank you for your service should be the beginning of the conversation, not the end.